Hey guys, it's your boy, Ballface8020, back again with another great response video. In tonight's video, the content goldmine that is Casey Xander has given us yet more response fodder. On Casey, you see in the title of the video, I describe him as a Taurus. And I've in the past have described Casey as a Taurus rising. I don't think so. I think I'm pretty certain he's a Scorpio rising, but he has a Taurus sun. That would be my guess. Maybe a Taurus moon, but I would say probably a Taurus sun. Because his personality is very Taurus, but his looks are very Scorpio. He's especially the eyes, which are, if you look into his eyes, they're very similar to Sydney Sweeney. Those sort of dead mid-deacon Scorpio rising eyes, with the thinner on the inside. And then, but anyway, so in this video, this is a strange, interesting video because some of the stuff he says is pretty good. And like all this stuff, you're going to think like, oh, this is cringe, this is retarded. Yeah, okay, yeah, look, I know. That's not really the point, though, because the thing is, Casey's in the trenches. Casey's doing all this stuff. Like, I'm just making videos responding to Casey. What I'm not doing is dating a whole bunch of women, let alone a whole bunch of women in their 20s. Casey is. I mean, unless you think he's making it up. But I don't think he is. So, anything he tells us, maybe it's wrong, maybe it's right, but it's based on real experience. And then, another thing is a lot of the stuff he says, because, here's why I've always been so dismissive of a lot of the stuff Casey says, because he says shit, and it's like, then none of this would ever work on my sister. It would never work on my sister-in-law. It would never have worked on any of their friends. So it just makes me, roll my eyes. But the thing is, it's like, you know what? My sister and sister-in-law and their friends are not the kind of women who would be on dating apps. So they're not the kind of women who you're going to see at clubs. They're not the kind of women who Casey Xander or his students are going to come into contact with. So, all this shit that's really dumb. It's like, yeah, but guess what? Most people are really dumb. So, so don't apply it to maybe more intelligent people or more sophisticated people. Some of this stuff could work. Doesn't mean you should do it. I don't think it's sustainable over the course of a relationship. I don't think it's going to lead to a good relationship. But what we're really talking about with Casey is usually, I know he focuses on all ages and stuff. He'll take your money no matter what your age or what your relationship status. But Casey's main expertise, for lack of a better word, and mainly what he's focusing on is 20s dating, dating in your 20s. And I think some of this stuff could be useful in the short term. So let's see what he has to say. He right off the bat, he starts with probably his most interesting one. He says, when you're texting a girl on a dating app, you introduce yourself with, instead of hi or whatever, you say, hey, wife, and then a blushing emoji. And when he first said that, I was rolling my eyes. I was like, what a fucking retard. But then I was like, you know what? That's just because that's just my reflexive reaction to anything Casey says. Because then he started talking about his experience and showing screenshots of examples. And I was thinking about it, and I was like, yeah, okay, no, would that work on any of the women in my family? No. Or their friends? No, absolutely not. That would not go well. But yeah, again, especially after he showed the screenshots of the conversations of the women who he had sent it to responding really well. That's I could see that working. And Casey goes into a whole bunch of psychology stuff, like she wants you to he even described it. He said, you're role playing like you're her husband. And he said, and then he went even further with it. And at first I thought this was cringe too, but then he won me over with there too. He said you can go further and say you're gonna have to call can you call, like, schedule the nanny for tomorrow because I'm going to have to go pick the kids up. And then, like, or pick the kids up from school or something. I don't know. I can't remember exactly what it was. And then he said, like, and then often she'll play along with it further by saying stuff like, okay, yeah, I'll make sure to have dinner ready when you're home. Cringe, gay, yeah, all of that. I could see it working. And coming, like, from a sales perspective, when you're starting a text in online dating, this girl's getting a lot of text. She's talking to a lot of guys. You want to have something to stand out. When I used to prospect on LinkedIn, we used to do stuff like that. At the previous company I worked for, dudes like we wouldn't try to flirt with them, obviously, but we would say something in the intro that would stand out instead of just saying, "Hey, want to buy our product?" Say this to get it to stand out to open a conversation, because then you at least get a response. I think it's really good. I think it's really good advice. He showed the receipts that it's had success. I think it's really good. The second one, he says, like, you say, like, when she says something, like, she'll do something like, say something like, hey, with like a whole bunch of whys, or basically say, just wait for an opportunity for you to say, why are you all like this? Or why are all girls like this? And then send her a screenshot of text conversations you've had on the app with other girls where they did the same thing, where some other girl said, hey, or said something, whatever. And this is like old school PUA stuff, because he's saying this was you're trying to show pre-selection. It's like, yeah. I think it's going to work. I think, Casey said he's had success with it, and I believe him. I think it's, again, you're dealing with a more intelligent or sophisticated woman. She's going to find that cringe. But you're talking about like a 20-something, 95 to 105 IQ woman, who's on a dating app. I think it's good. I think it's good stuff. So yeah, I think that one would work. Then he does another one that I think is really cringe, but when you think about it, it's like, he may have a point here. He says you either send a text, or even better, you leave a voice text where you go like, and he even did it in a pretty convincing way. Like, look, I'm trying to do better. You probably wouldn't understand, but whatever. It's like, totally fake, total bullshit, and you'd think that, like, no girl's ever going to fall for that. But it's like, you know what? There are girls all over the world who still fall for the, like, well, I'm going to love you forever, and then, she gets pregnant with his baby and he's gone, which isn't funny, obviously, but like, because you always assume, like, well, no girl would ever really fall for some guy who said that, right? Yeah, well, apparently they do. You have to keep in mind that, again, people are stupid. Young people are really stupid. So, yeah. And then on this same front, he said he intentionally leaves his house messy. He never makes his bed. He leaves dirty dishes in the sink. And he starts to kind of lose me here, but then what he says makes sense. He says that then when you have her over and she's like, oh, God, why is your house like such a mess? He just goes like, oh, man, I've just been so stressed out lately. But you know what? You're right. We can get this cleaned up now. Can you help me out? And he said that way she feels like, she's in that girlfriend role. And he didn't really say this, but I think it's more important. It's like you're triggering into her nurturing, protective, save you instincts. Like she's like starting to feel like already, like, not only is there a connection, but this is a guy who needs my help. It's manipulative. Is every girl going to fall for it? No, but the thing is, instincts aren't about falling for it. Instincts get triggered and that's it. And I could see that being really effective. So far, I think we're at 3 for 3. Would I recommend any of these things? No, that's not what I'm saying. But 3 things that I think could be effective in the niche that Casey's in. Then here's where he starts to lose me. He says, randomly go like 3 or 4 days without responding to her text message. Yeah, I don't think this is necessary. I don't think this is a good idea. I think because it's too one size fits all. I don't like this kind of stuff, this game stuff. It's not me. I'm a very authentic person. But it's not about what I like or don't like. It's about what's going to be effective. And and what's going to be effective, we don't expect it to be effective for all women. But like in general. Let's say if you're somebody who you guys are really communicating well with and a lot with, this is total overkill. It's not gonna do you any good, and there's a good chance it's gonna backfire. If it's somebody who maybe you talked to, but maybe you sent the last 2 text messages, or maybe the conversation's drying up, or maybe she's just kind of flaky in general, again, I wouldn't do it. I would advise people not to do it. But in that situation, yes, I could see it working. Then he follows it up. He makes a kind of a strong follow-up. He says that when you do text back, he says, don't do it just like one text. You do multiple texts back. And it's like, oh, sorry, hey, I got away, or I hadn't seen that you texted, I got really busy. And then send her like a candid photo, like a candid photo, a selfie of where you are and what you're doing. So to make it seem like, oh, I wasn't deliberately not paying attention or deliberately not responding to you. I just got so busy and caught up that I missed these texts. Or that I had so much going on. Again, this is not going to work in that situation like he talked about in the other video where the girl's already cooking and cleaning for the guy who she hasn't even moved in with, by the way, who she doesn't even live in the same city with. But that's just Casey spurging out. But like in a situation where you're kind of in that sort of like FWB stage, or like, you're like, it's still like sort of distant, like dating app situationship type stuff, where there maybe isn't like a huge level of engagement on her part yet. Yeah, I think it could work. I mean, I think this more than the other 3. It needs to be with the caveat. I don't like it. But if done properly, even now, even in year 2024, I think it can be effective if it's used properly. So far, I mean, really good. Way good for a Casey video. This is better than we expect. Then it gets weaker as the list goes on. Then he says if she's being sassy or being a bitch, he makes a couple of suggestions. One is he says, I'll just say typical. Or he said, I'll wait for a few minutes and then I'll say typical. Or I'll say typical girl behavior. And then he says, sometimes I'll say whatever, or I don't care. I don't care. That one could potentially be good. Typical, I don't like. I'm not going to tell you that it can't work because I don't know. I don't like it. I think it's too try hard. It's too like, whatever is horrible. I mean, look, maybe he's had success with it, but whatever. That's what girls say. So no. Typical is kind of like what girls say too. It's too like catty and offing. I don't care is very masculine and definitive. Now, here's my problem with this. If it's very easy to miscommunicate over text. So I don't know, like if she's being a bitch or weird or whatever, and this is something like but you still want to engage. You're not like that hasn't like turned you off from the whole experience, and you don't think that she's necessarily pulled away or something. That would be something that I would have 2 different responses to that. Okay. And granted, I'm not the expert, but I'm just telling you what I would do. And yeah, I would give this as advice, even though I don't have any proof to back it up. I would either just say nothing, just not respond. I think that radio silence is generally a very good response to any type of rudeness from somebody else. It doesn't have to be in a relationship, but especially with women who can be like real drama queens and it'll just get mad and sulk for no reason. You just just don't say anything. Just don't. I mean, there's nothing there to reply to. Like, typical and whatever. That's just being a bitch. I don't care. I think is being a jerk. I think that some women may like it. That's a little too harsh for me. But my problem with it isn't that it's too harsh. It's that if you're going to be a tough guy, why are you doing it over text? Like if it's gotten to that point, like where you need to tell her like an I don't care, you want to put her in her place, so to speak. Well, then why don't you just be a man and call her and be like, yo, what the fuck? Something like that. Like, or something, like if you really didn't care, you wouldn't have texted back. I think he's off base on this one. Casey's had a lot more success than me, a lot more experience than me, so take it for what it's worth. The I don't care might be okay. I think over text you have to be very careful. The whatever and typical, I would avoid that. Number 6. I'm sorry, before we even get to number 6, this should be number 6, but he adds it as part of number 5. He says, and this one was really good. This was clever. He says, you're always like this. And he says you have to say you are. You don't say you're with an apostrophe. It has to be you are always like this. Now, that part I don't get what the point is, but it has to be you are always like this. He says that you say that to her even if this is somebody you've only been texting for a few days, because it makes her think that we're in this boyfriend, girlfriend, husband, wife relationship. Like this is somebody who I really do have a connection with. That's pretty good. And I mean, it's pretty good and a pretty dark triad. I wouldn't have thought of that. Casey, I'm kind of impressed. Should you do it? No, I don't think you should. Could it work? Yeah, I think it could. But going on, so give him half credit for number 5. 6. I don't like this one either. He says, you say, we need an argument because I'm bored. No. Like, is it necessarily going to hurt you? No, but I think it's relatively high risk for no reward. Also, arguing out of boredom, again, more of a girl thing, more of a girl thing. So no, I don't like it. He says, then if you're going out, he says you need to be in a situation. He gets to this in kind of a roundabout way, but the example he gives is if you're in a situation, you guys are going out for a date or something, and she wants to go get drinks. And I don't think he means this in all cases, but the example he gave was you say, we're not drinking tonight. And then she says, well, why not? You say, because God wouldn't like that, and that's bad. And then he's like, and you notice how I say that, and that's bad. I was like, no, Casey, I didn't know. I mean, what the fuck are you talking about? No. But so we're getting on to say, you're taking the father figure role, and women like to be told no. That's certainly probably going to be controversial. Remember, we're talking about dating not very bright girls in their 20s. Yeah, it probably is going to work if you can pull it off. Again, is it going to work with my sister or her friends, my sister-in-law or her friends? No. But is it going to work with the kind of girls that Casey Xander meets on dating apps? Probably. Not always, and which is why you got to be careful. But for a lot of them, for 7 out of 10 who match with Casey, it probably is going to be effective. Yeah. I mean, you want to, again, you just because it works doesn't mean you don't have to worry about, like I said before, overkill or overdoing it. And then hopefully you're not like a total cornball about it like Casey. But yeah, I mean, it probably will work. I mean, I just don't like, it's unfortunate that sometimes Casey and red pillars in general will take things that have like a kernel of truth in general and apply it to all women. Like there's some ways where all women are the same. Like all women are height queens, except for really tall women. Who tend to be okay or who tend to not be in his height. But of not tall women, 99% of them are height queens. Okay. So like some things to show that's one thing where all women are the same. But there's a lot of things where women are very, very variant. Like some women care a lot about money, some don't. Some women care a lot about social status, some don't. Some women care a lot about race, some don't. Some women care a lot about women have very different things that they like in a guy's personality, and like interest and stuff. And then some women like really dominant masculine guys. Some women like more effeminate, passive, and even submissive guys. Some women like weird, quirky guys. Some women like boring jock types. It really varies. So you want us to be very cautious about that kind of stuff, like women like this or women don't like this. Most women, most like average intelligence women, average intelligence, normie women in the West in their 20s are going to like, a guy who says no, can take charge. Again, as long as you can go overboard with it. And I said most, not all. So most means 51%. Are probably going to like it to some degree. But that's going to vary a lot. I would be careful. I think you're probably in a safe bet doing that early. The problem is the whole thing with forcing it. Like, because if I said that to a girl, it's not going to work, even if she's somebody who's receptive to it, because I'm just not naturally authoritative. And so we might say, well, and Casey is, with a certain type of woman, I think, yeah. I think he can at least put on the front. Like I said, for me, it's like I said, I'm such an authentic person. I'm not saying that as a compliment to myself. I can't fake it till I make it. I can't put on a mask and be somebody I'm not. Somebody like Casey is more able to do that. To is Casey this natural, dominant Christian Grey type? No, that's not him. Is he able to put on that front successfully? Yes, or even at least a lot better than somebody like me could. And so he does have that ability. So, yes, it could work with some women if either A, you're that type of guy, or B, you're at least capable of faking that kind of role. Not everybody is. So, again, that's why you really got to worry about this sort of one-size-fits-all advice. So I know where he's coming with this. I'm not saying it's meritless. I'm not saying he hasn't had success with it. But as general advice, I don't like it. It's too broad. Then he gets into just being a douche. He says, if you're in an Uber with her, take out your GPS and be following along with the directions. And if she asks, why are you doing that? Just say, I just want to be safe, or I don't trust people. Okay, first of all, I wouldn't assume that she's going to ask, why are you doing that? I mean, well, actually, you know what? She probably will, because I would ask. I'd be like, dude, what the fuck, man? Why are you following this? Why he's using a GPS. What are you going to see that he doesn't? And this is but he's saying this is your tough guy dad shit. And I hate tough guy dads. You might be able to get away with this, but again, it's not high risk, but it's a little bit of a risk for no reward. I don't think it makes you look like a father figure or a protective. I think it just makes you look weird. It's just dumb. It's just tacky and dumb. Don't do it. Then he says, when you're out with your friends and you're going to put something up on Instagram, make sure it's a candid photo that you have a friend of yours take instead of really obviously posed pictures. This is probably good advice. I think that's a good idea, to do candid. I don't totally get what it has to do with dating. But yeah, I mean, if you're we're concerned about your Instagram health, then yeah, I think that I agree with that. I don't know if it's going to be a huge help, but it's a good pointer. Then he says that he goes into more detail this if you sign up for his Language of Women course. So, can't say I recommend that, based on the advice we got, especially since, dude, you just gave us everything. Why are you, now you want to charge? You just gave us the whole thing for free. But there was some interesting stuff in there. Nothing that I would think is worth paying for, but yeah, that's all for now. See you in the next.